fulfill his aspirations and desires, but they material or spiritual, be they material or spiritual. Those in the material world are ashanta, without peace, because they have so many desires to fulfill. The pure devotee, however, is without desire. Anyavidashita shunya. The pure devotee is completely free from all kinds of material desire. Karmis, on the other hand, are simply full of desires because they try to enjoy sense gratification. They are not peaceful in this life nor the next, during the past, present, or future. Similarly, Jnanis are always aspiring after liberation and trying to become one with the Supreme. Yogis are aspiring after many siddhis, power, anima, lagima, prapti, etc. However, a devotee is not at all interested in these things because he is fully dependent on the mercy of Krishna. Krishna is Yogeshwara, the possessor of all mystic powers, siddhis, and he is Atmarama, fully self-satisfied. The yoga siddhis are described in this verse. One can fly in outer space without the aid of a machine, and he can travel at the speed of mind. This means that as soon as the yogi desires to go somewhere within this universe, or even beyond this universe, he can do it immediately. Can do so immediately. One cannot estimate the speed of mind, for within a second, the mind can go many millions of miles. Sometimes yogis enter into the bodies of other people, and act as they desire when their bodies are not working properly. When the body becomes old, the perfect yogi can found a young, able body. Giving up his old body, the yogi can enter into the young body and act as he pleases. Being a plenary expansion of Lord Vasudeva, Lord Rishabhadeva possessed all these mystic yoga powers, but he was satisfied with his devotional love of Krishna, which was evinced by the ecstatic symptoms such as crying, laughing, and shivering. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Rishabhadeva's teachings to his sons. The verse again. O King Parikshit, just to show all the yogis the mystic process, Lord Rishabhadeva, the plenary expansion of Lord Krishna, performed wonderful activities. Actually, he was the master of liberation and was fully absorbed in transcendental bliss, which increased 1,000-fold. Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, is the original source of Lord Rishabhadeva. There is no difference in their constitution, and consequently, Lord Rishabhadeva awakened the loving symptoms of crying, laughing, and shivering. He was always absorbed in transcendental love. Due to this, all mystic powers automatically approached him, such as the ability to travel in outer space at the speed of mind, to appear and disappear, to enter the bodies of others, and to see things far, far away. Although he could do all this, he did not exercise these powers. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangate Girim Yat Kipatamaham Bande Shri Gurundina Taranam Paramananda Maharam Shri Chaitanya Mishwanam. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vachapatitaram Pavanivyo Vaishnavivyo Namo Namaha. So, dear devotees, this is the end of this particular chapter where we hear about the activities of Lord Rishabhadeva, who made his appearance at the request of King Nabi, having a son. It was difficult to fulfill his wish. It seems like devotees sometimes make difficult requests, like Dhruva Maharaj wanted a kingdom bigger than anybody else, so Lord Krishna had to basically give him a spiritual planet. In this case, the wish was to have a son that was as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. one of these names is Asamurtha. No one is equal or better or bigger. Or so how do you do that? Krishna said, well, I have to show up myself because there's no one equal to me. So in this appearance, Lord Rishabhadev, he performed the duties of a perfect king, instructed his sons as people should do, like parents usually give instructions to their children because they gather some wisdom throughout, they're supposed to gather some wisdom throughout the years, all those years that they spend together, and then move on to the next world. Of course, nowadays things are topsy-turvy. My wife was telling me about talking to Kamalini. Kamalini is married to Apurva Prabhu. Apurva is one of the best cooks the movement ever had. Kamalini, his wife, has been distributing books basically from the day she joined 50 years ago. And they have very nice children. Amala Harinam, the Kirtaniya, is their son. And she was saying something I totally share, that children nowadays are taught in reverse. They're basically dominating their parents, teaching the parents what to do, holding them hostage, in other words, because of this erroneous approach of so-called gentle parenting, which is nothing but spoiling and giving them the right to entitlement. So in the past, things were different. And I'm not talking just about 50 years ago. At the time of Lord Rishabhadev, things that you do, you gather wisdom, you practice austerities, and then at the end, you instruct your children, and then you go practice more austerities and get ready to leave the body. Of course, in the case of Lord Rishabhadev is God himself. So he just played around. He didn't want to be bothered. He just lined his own urine and feces and roll in them and didn't care. So people wouldn't, because people were very cruel even then, and they spat at him and passed gas and threw stuff at him. And so he didn't want to bother with that. So he made himself unapproachable. However, he stole an urine, being of having spiritual properties, were aromatic, and smell it for miles. Just like nowadays when people are planting for the next harvest, you can smell pig manure for miles. Well, in the same way, you could smell the wonderful fragrance from the Lord Rishabhadev for many miles. And therefore, people didn't bother him. And even though he didn't need to practice austerity, it's just because, just to give a good example, Lord Rishabhadev, in the next chapter will be explained how he practiced severe austerities just to show us. Again, we follow the highest example, Yad Yada Charati Shrestha's. We're supposed to follow the greatest example. And Krishna, being the best example, is always doing that. Of course, sometimes he appears in his avaruta form, like Lord Nityananda or Balaram, and it's very difficult to follow or imitate. It shouldn't be done like that, as they have the prerogative of doing whatever they want. Because of his symptoms, due to being absorbed in transcendental love, this crying, laughing, shivering, the mystic powers automatically approach it. Just like when someone practices bhakti, mukti, liberation, may approach the devotee. Noise. Okay. Ananya Bhakti, I think you need to be muted. So just like liberation approaches the devotee when a devotee is advanced, of course the devotee will turn down the opportunity for liberation because it's not in his self-interest nor in the interest of Krishna to get any sort of impersonal liberation. In the same way, all these mystic powers, which are fascinating, to become lighter and the lightest, heavier and the heaviest, be able to travel in outer space at the speed of mind. If you want to go somewhere, just think about it. You're there. To appear and disappear, you can appear in a place distant. Some yogis have this, they go bathe. They want to bathe in all the sacred rivers, so they enter one river and they appear in another sacred river, and then to do the same thing, and they keep going to every sacred river they want to. And also, when the body gets old, you can actually take over like a ghost, get into someone else's body, and do whatever you want with that body. So it's all this very magic, it's not appealing to the devotees, not appealing at all. That's why Prabhupada quotes the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is a famous verse. I'm gonna quote I put the verse. Krishna Bhakta. Sometimes the verse is quoted with the first line is in place of the second, so it's kind of reversible verse. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaleya Shanta Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Atayeva Shanta. This, the translation is, because a devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless, he is peaceful. Fruitive workers desire material enjoyment, Gyanis desire liberation, and yogis desire material opulence. Therefore, they're all lusty and cannot be peaceful. It says here that a devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless. Technically, it's not. Desireless means to please Krishna. That is to be desireless. It's not like we cease to have any desire, because desire is eternal and goes with the individual. But our desire is impure if we want to gratify ourselves. However, if we want to gratify Krishna, then the desire becomes pure. So we are desireless when we want to satisfy the desires of Krishna. And that's the only way to be peaceful, because as long as one is listening to this body, to this mind, to this intelligence, to this false ego, there will be no peace. As the karmis desire material enjoyment, which lead to more desires and more frustration. Gyanis desire liberation, but once they get liberated, they get bored in the Brahmajyoti. Yes, the anxiety of the material world is behind, but there's no Mexican food, there is no Super Bowls, there is no friends. You're on your own, floating in a lower state of bliss. And the yogis desire material opulence, like powers. Therefore, Prabhupada says they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. Lusty doesn't mean to chase after sex. It means that the heart is not quite settled, and one want things that others have, or that one can imagine one can possess. In other words, there is no peace. The only way this is called Sakali. Sakali cannot attain Ashanta. All of them cannot attain peace. Those who want Bhukti, Mukti, and Siddhi, Kami. But Krishna Bhakta, Nishkam, no desires. Therefore, Ataeva, they actually attain peace. And the purport of that verse, and then Maria Lila, Prabhupada said, the devotee of Lord Krishna has no desire other than serving Krishna. Even so-called liberated people are full of desires. Fruitive actors desire better living accommodations. And jnanis want to be one with the Supreme. Yogis desire material opulence, yogic perfections, and magic. All of these non-devotees are lusty, kami, because they desire something, they cannot have peace. The peace formula is given by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Jagyata Apasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatmamam Shantim Richati. One who simply understands that throughout the entire universe is the supreme enjoyer and beneficiary of all kinds of sacrifices, penances, and austerities, which should be performed only to attain his devotional service. That Krishna is the supreme being and thus the proprietor of all the material worlds. That Krishna is the only friend who can actually do good to all living entities, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. One who understands these three principles about Krishna immediately becomes desireless, nishkama, and therefore peaceful. A Krishna Bhakta knows that his friend and protector in all respects is Krishna, who is able to do anything for his devotee. Krishna says, Kantaya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Kunti, declare boldly that my devotee never perishes. Of course, because this is an interesting point that Krishna asked Arjuna to pronounce these words. Because Krishna sometimes, people don't believe him because he's tricky. So when his devotee says it, then they will have to believe it. Since Krishna gives this assurance, the devotee lives in Krishna and has no desire for personal benefit. The background for the devotee is the all good himself. Why should the devotee aspire for something good for himself? His only business is to please the Supreme by rendering as much service as possible. Excuse me. The Krishna Bhakta has no desire for his own personal benefit. He is completely protected by the Supreme. Avasya Rakshiva Krishna Vishvasa Palana. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that he is desireless because Krishna will give him protection in all circumstances. It is not that he expects any assistance from Krishna. He simply depends on Krishna just as a child depends on his parents. The child does not know how to expect service from his parents, but he is always protected nevertheless. This is called nishkama, desireless. Etc. So, in the case of Lord Rishabhadev, he had nothing that he wanted from anybody. He was in an ocean of bliss that was constantly increasing. And so it's thousandfold. So he didn't need anything. So that's actually good advice for any sort of relationship where one is full of expectations. Oh, this person is going to really fulfill all my desires, my wishes, my aspirations, my unfulfilled desire for love or company or warmth or friendship or this or that. All these desires that we have are meant to be directed towards Krishna. Of course, we don't have to take that journey alone, although at the very end we do. So we have to take the company of those who love us and that they are transparent in a sense. We cannot expect friendship from someone true friendship from someone who has an agenda. Therefore, ultimately, the only person who doesn't have an agenda is Krishna and his devotees, the only persons. Of course, devotees are in different stages of maturity, so we may expect some flaws until purity is achieved. But still, it takes so long. Like, for example, why is that we say your only friends are the devotees, your only friends are, you have to associate with devotees, don't associate with non-devotees. Why is that? There is so many things that it takes so much work to cultivate a friendship. That is, there has to be something very strong in common. For devotees, for example, there may be a book distributor in somewhere in the middle of Europe or Asia or Africa, and we have so much in common. We know how that person thinks and why he acts the way he acts. So there's, even when you meet the person, you already know that person. You already trust this person because he's undergoing the same process, is thinking the same thing, is feeling the same way. There's no need to get to know a person. You have to learn so much. Oh, this person doesn't believe what I believe, doesn't have the same philosophy, doesn't have the same diet, doesn't have it, because other things are superfluous. The main thing, the core of a relationship is the agreement on fundamental things. And if we don't agree that we are not the body, then there's no friendship there. It's just some kind of illusion because this person is nice, or yeah, that's fine. But you cannot really go very deep into a relationship unless they're both working towards the goal of loving Krishna, of satisfying Krishna's senses. That's why our true friend is Krishna, because our capacity is enormous to absorb all the love, all the knowledge, all the friendship that can only be given by the Supreme. And in the same vein, we want to reciprocate, and only Krishna can take the amount that we can provide. So therefore, to put one's hopes and wishes in someone else is going to be disappointing. This is why expectations are really the graveyard of relationships. But with Krishna, there is no limit to the expectations. He surpasses all expectations. All right. So we're going to begin tomorrow the next chapter, which is the 6th chapter of the 5th canto. Any comments, questions, reflections, or contentions? And there is a marathon going on, as we have 200 people coming this weekend. So we cannot just fill time because we like philosophy. So please be aware of that fact. All right. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And we'll see you tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Padmam Shri Bhagavati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Kevalavana Kamnati
Tanya Babu Nityanam Shadvita
Sorry, speed of the living, yes. Come on. I'll just go over. Look at the phone, let's bring it down. Let's slow it, if we listen carefully, and initiate in the keys, the top of my things. We assume that from lane. Assuming.
Hare Krishna, wishing you a blissful Krishna conscious day.
Keep all the rhythm. You just slow it down and whatever it goes.